Hello, friends. Good evening. Today we'll be discussing on Indian society and women's participation, unit number 5. If we see the contribution of women in politics is not much recognized as a contribution to the society or to the culture, my dear friends. Whether it's in the Western or in the Eastern politics, my dear friends, it is predominantly a male world. It is the masculine or the male are going to play a vital role in terms of politics. Even politics belong to the public sphere, my dear friends, whereas women's primary role is of the private life or private sphere. That is nothing but they are going to do only the household activity, and it was treated that it's the duty of the male, my dear friends. However, in India, with the dawn of independence, my dear friends, with the dawn of independence, women are constitutionally recognized as political participation on par with the men. And the government of India has provided reservation, 1/3 of reservations for the women who belong to all sections of social categories to contest and cast their vote, my dear friends, in electing the representatives. And recently, the national government also uh, passed the bill saying that it is going to provide 33 or 1.3%, 1/3 of reservation for women, even in the assembly and parliament elections, my dear friends. So let us discuss about women's participation in terms of various factors. The first one is socio-economical and cultural factors. If we see the status of women in the ancient India, the attitude of people towards women had a great social significance. If we see in any society, my dear friends, if we see the attitude of Hindu society towards women, can be understood from the text Vedas, because Vedas have been the source of the Indian society or the Vedic or traditional society. Along with Vedas, we also have Puranas and so on. It is seen that during the Vedic period, so far education was concerned, the position of women was generally not equal to men. Many women was described as philosophers, even though it was not equal on par with the men counterpart. But we can also see that there are certain women philosophers like Viswara, Gosha, Apala, Shikata, and so on, my dear friends. These have been the testimony of the fact that women also had similar background of education on par with the men. They also shared equal, they also have equal share with man, with the responsibilities and duties both at home, my dear friends. A man without woman was considered as inadequate. Both male and female without each other, wife and husband without each other, were treated as inadequate or not complete, my dear friends. You can take the example of Ramayana. In Ramayana, when Rama wants to perform Ashwamedha Yagna, at that time he said he was okay. When the priest said that you are supposed to perform this for the betterment or for the welfare of the people, he said okay. But the priest said that because your wife, your lady Sita is not there, you are incomplete, you are not supposed to do it. And the priests have suggested Rama to go for second marriage. But he said, sorry, I don't want to go for second marriage. Then they made the statue or the idol of his lady. Then he kept the hand of the statue or idol of his lady, and he has performed this Ashwamedha Yagna. Remember that. Without each other, without husband, the lady is incomplete, and without lady, the husband is incomplete. That kind of situation we had in the Indian society during the Vedic or ancient period, my dear friends. Uh, in some Brahmana, there is another passage which shows that women are intellectually inferior to men, or more emotional and less rational than men. In some of the Puranas or Brahmanas, they have said that because women are psychologically weaker, that's the reason why they are treated as, because of psychological emotional weakness, they are treated as inferior. Because for a king, he must be wise enough to decide what is right and what is wrong, my dear friends. And sometimes, if required, he must not show sympathy, he must be empathetic. So women are emotional. That's the reason they may not be able to. And the nation or the state may also face trouble. That's the reason some of the Brahmanas have said that they are weaker, they are inferior. And if you see in terms of Puranas in Mahabharata, Bhishma says at one point that woman is the root of all evil and naturally it tempers and loots. In another instance, it says that women should always be adored and treated with love. We are going to have two statements. One statement saying that says that all the problems which arise is just because of women. At the same time, he also said that women should be treated with love and affection, my dear friends. Manu Dharma says, on one hand, where women are honored, there the gods will be wandering because the gods will be pleased and they will be wandering there. On the other hand, he also said that she should always be under the control of man. He said that women should be respected so that gods will be happy and they'll be wandering there. But at the same time, he also said that they must be under the control of man. That means before marriage, the girl must be under the control of father, and after marriage, she should be under the control of the husband. And after the demise of the husband, she should be under the control of the son, my dear friends. On the whole, except in the role of wife and mother, in general, they were not acknowledged any independent status in the ancient period also. The real forces of benevolence and male violence like Shakti and Prakriti came out strongly in the understanding of women during the ancient period. Mm, According to Soma, nothing but the moon god gave them purity. According to Manu, he described that woman as a personification of purity. According to Soma, nothing but the moon god gave them the purity, and Gandharva, the celestial musician, gave them cultured speech, and Agni, the fire of God, has granted them freedom to eat anything of their choice. Hence, they are treated as pure as gold, my dear friends. Women are incomparable, pure. They are treated as very, very pure, pavitram. They are never defiled. Their menses destroy all their blemishes, is what Manu said at some places in his writings. It is also true that in the early Hindu India, the woman could freely avail herself of ashrama vyavastha in the same way as the man did. Women, along with Shudras, were not taken into account as far as the management of life through the ashrama stage is concerned. For example, the upper three varnas, like when we have Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishyas, they also enjoyed all the ashrama dharmas like Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyasa, whereas the women who are belong to the Shudra, they were never taken into account for the management of their life through this ashrama dharmas, my dear friends. Along with this, we also remember that Vatsyayana, Shukraniti, and Mahabharata mentioned a scheme of education in the 64 arts per woman. We say that there are 64 forms of arts or art forms, 64 art forms, out of which all the 64 art forms are also mentioned and trained for this woman, my dear friends. This implies that, generally speaking, both the women and men should be educated, but the content of education was conceived along with different lines for men and for women, my dear friends. They have to undergo changes. Okay, the woman, she can go for education till her marriage, and whereas a man, it's a lifetime problem. Lifetime training. In the Grihastha Ashramam, it is a joint ashrama both for the man and woman, because man and woman get married and then they are going to start this Grihastha Ashramam. In this, they are going to maintain ashrama discipline. Both the wife and husband must have love and affection on each other. They need to support each other physically, psychological, and in all the dimensions so that the family can sustain. They have to give birth to the children and they have to take care of all the children. Their duty is to provide a home and ensure that both the people are going to satisfy each other's requirement by maintaining dharma, my dear friends. And once this is done, once people give birth to children, once they have taken care of them, then after attaining a certain age, the duty of the couple is to go for vanaprastha to know the ultimate truth. So it is up to the boy. Boy has to anyway go to vanaprastha to know the ultimate truth. It is up to the lady whether she wants to accompany the husband or not, my dear friends. So it depends on the situation part. So their ultimate duty is to gain knowledge, know the ultimate truth so that they can attain salvation, my dear friends. The explanation has offered in support of all this to be that lives of man and woman after marriage were considered as one. After marriage, both of them, both their lives are treated as one, my dear friends. They cannot be separated. Now, let us discuss about the socio-economical condition of women during the medieval India. From 500 BC to the Muslim period, my dear friends, the position of freedom of women declined considerably as they sank into the state of subversience. Up to 1200 AD, some women of the upper strata received considerable education. Some of them distinguished themselves in the field of scholarship and so on. Turks have brought their own heritage, and women of the royal families took active part even in the politics as well as social life. The lifestyle of women is generally deteriorating even though in that period. Feudalism has struck the roots during this period, and women came to be regarded as a part of family property. And they came to be considered as second-grade citizens in all the walks of life. A limited number of women did not play an indirect role in statecraft as mothers, wives, or so on. Let us see the economical conditions of women in the modern India. The socio-economical deprivation of women was at its highest level in the modern era. The patriarchal, commercial, and materialistic onslaught on the society have only helped the men, and it helped further deterioration of the status of women, my dear friends. It has developed the low esteem among women themselves. The reform movements like Raja Ram Mohan Rai, Pule, and others during the 19th and 20th century has little bit tried to uplift the condition of women. These were born out of the ideology as the nationalist movement. These people received Philip with the concept of Sri Shakti given by Gandhiji, who interrupted Hindu tents and drew away women in large numbers to participate in the freedom struggle. The activities of the women in the nationalist movement again brought forth the strength of women power and encouraged society to take their grievances into account seriously. The women won support for this cause by linking themselves or taking part in the freedom struggle, my dear friends. In the beginning of the movement, the women's right to formal education and improvement of her social and economical status has taken place. Progress achieved in women's literacy by the beginning of 20th century raised the consciousness among women, especially the educated women, and led to the emergence of women's organizations like All India Women's Conference. They demanded for enforcement of women's surface was presented in the year 1915 by the delegation of women headed by Sarojini Naidu, that too to the British Parliament. By the year 1926, women started entering the provincial legislature. In 1929 and 1935, women exercised their franchise. In 1937, 1942, my dear friends, women from reserved constituencies and yet from general ones got elected, my dear friends. Now let us see the status of women in the post-independent era. By the time India attained independence, the changes have come about where about the women's rights to vote was recognized, and they were allowed to get involved in legislation and executive activities of the state. They have stratified nature of the Indian society that was open only to the elite section of the Indian women who were especially educated, who were residing in the urban areas, and who belonged to the higher caste origin. It was not a cake for all section of women. It was only for the educated, for the people who are there in the urban areas and who belong to the higher caste origins, my dear friends. The inauguration of the Indian Constitution in the year 1950 has provided legal and constitutional sanctions against discrimination of women. Article 14 of the Indian Constitution ensures equality of all the citizens in front of law for all citizens. At the same time, Article 15 of the Indian Constitution prohibits any form of discrimination against any person based on gender, based on sex, based on anything, both in the public life or any place. According to Article 16, my dear friends, it guarantees equality to all the people irrespective of sex in all the areas. Article 15 further permits to state to make special provisions for the advancement of women, my dear friends. As the Indian Constitution came into existence, it has provided legal support for the people in the form of these articles. The Hindu Marriage Act of 1955, the Hindu Succession Act of 1956, Dowry Prohibition Act of 1961, and the Equal Remuneration Act of 1976, or some of the acts which are used in the form in the direction of women empowerment and women emancipation and women participation in each and every arena of life. Now let us see the women's in political process, electoral process, and formal political process. In 1915, India has come out with a political system akin to that of its colonial master, nothing but the Britishers' policy. The parliamentary system of government calls for a competitive electoral politics among the people by which the majority emerges and forms a government both at the state as well as the central level, my dear friends. Election in India is described as the only national festival when all the eligible voters are called upon to select their representatives, my dear friends. But in fact, we cannot even conceive of a parliamentary democracy without the conduct of elections. Though elections are derived as a number game, no alternative mechanism has been yet devised to ensure representation of all the sections of the people in the society. Now let us see the women as contestant. The number of women contested in parliamentary elections has not increased much over the past years. Political parties seem to be reluctant to field women candidates in spite of the public statements in support of women's participation or women's participation or involvement in politics. Almost all the political parties, whether it's the national parties or the regional parties, they have said that there must be reservation for women to participate both at the assembly and as well as the parliament. But in reality, it was strict only for the oral thing, but it was never implemented, my dear friends. In this context, the majority of the women who enter in the active politics as contestants are related by kinship to political personalities and families as daughters, wives, daughter-in-laws, and so on, my dear friends, or who are very, very close to the politicians. Only those people are contesting in politics, or only those people are getting an opportunity to contest in the politics, my dear friends. It is very, very rare case that political parties attempt to project women without any political background without any political background. The highest number of women to contest and won in Lok Sabha in the year 1984 was one from Congress. That was the highest number of seats and voting percentages. Along other non-Congress parties, including the left parties, the women contested from a very was a meager percentage. Though all political parties talk about 30% reservation for women, the practice has always been different since the chances of winning are considered to be lesser for women, my dear friends. If we see in page number 97, in the year 1977, 2,439 people have contested. Among them, only 70 people have contested and elected. Only 70 people, women have contested, and only 19 people have been elected at the Lok Sabha. And if we see at the state assemblies during the same year, 1977, 408 women have contested. Of them, only 74 women have been elected as representatives. If we see during the year 1980, only 142 of 4,620 have been contested, of which only 28 women have been elected for the Lok Sabha, and for the state assemblies, out of 1,78,000, 17,826, only 420 women have contested, of which only 117 women have been elected. The same way, you can see that the number of participation is less. Even though their participation is less, the percentage of winning the either the Lok Sabha seat or the assembly seat is very, very limited, my dear friends. Now let us see women in the legislature. The notion of parliamentary democracy calls for the presence of all the sections of people in the legislative bodies, my dear friends. So even we require the participation of women so that they can talk about their grievances, they can share their ideas how to empower women, and so on. They can also help the government in designing the policies for the welfare of women, my dear friends. So we require their participation in all the arena along with the other people. The percentage of women in parliament as well as in the state assemblies have been very, very low, especially to single or double digits, my dear friends. Since their participation is as contestants is also low, the political behavior of these women in legislation is usually dictated by the policies of the party which they are going to represent. So whatever the political party's ideology or philosophy is there or the policies are there, these are going to simply govern the women for taking part, my dear friends. Once in the saddle, as legislative women are found to be active in attending and actively taking part in the business of legislation. Most of the time, they have to simply abide to the policy of the political party with whom in which they have contested and won. But only very, very rare the women are going to take active role, my dear friends. Now let us see the role of women in the executive. Despite the generally depressed picture of women's role in Indian politics, there have been a number of women in key positions of power. India is one of the very few nations which laid women prime minister. We have the examples, Srimati Indira Gandhi. We also have the president, right now president of the country, Murmure, and we have different women who have held the positions as ministers and in different positions and capacities. The ministries have been assigned to them are usually considered as low ranking, dealing with cultural affairs or welfare ministries. But if you see the previous government, we also have the finance minister and so on. As the education is being increased, the women's participation is also increasing, and women are also getting key positions in the government, my dear friends. If you see the women's political participation, both in the Western as well as in the Eastern social traditions, women have been excluded from the fields of politics. The earlier sections of this chapter or of this lesson has said that At the earlier, the women did not get much importance, but as the societies have been modernized, we can see that people are also going to get certain opportunities to context. We can see that people who are educated, who are there in the urban areas, who have connectivity with the political uh, parties, they are getting the rights to contest and take active part in that. J.S. Mill uh, spoke about the freedom and the rights of women, but it was more in the reformist sense, that with the motive of empowering them. He talked about right to women, freedom and right to women, so that if the girl is going to have the right to get educated, if the girl is going to have the right to take part in all the activities, then obviously the girl will also have the opportunity, the freedom to make decisions. That is what we call it as empowerment, my dear friends. New issues have been raised by the modern writers regarding the property of um, participatory democracies, which in practice do not provide equal opportunities to women. 50% of the population in their functioning mechanism are nothing but the women. But in reality, most of the people or most of the women are not getting opportunity to take active role. In the year 1974, we have there was a report published in the name of Uh, Towards equality. And this report had said that it is necessary for us to attempt a definition of political participation which is a broader than the conventional one. It includes a gamut of voluntary activities with a bearing to the political process, including voting support of political groups, communication with legislation, dissemination of political views and opinion among the electorate, and other related activities. Besides social relationships, there are some spheres of power relationship which are generated and institutionalized. They are used to encourage control of people's behavior, attitude, and belief in specified directions. Uh, so it is going to broadly refer to the activity by those not formally empowered to make decisions. These activities being mainly identified to influence the attitudes and behaviors of those who have power for decision making. Now, Western writers have defined political participation as an essential, a part of modernization process in the context of developing nation. In the context of women of a country, political participation in this sense is constrained by socio-cultural factors like caste, religion, status, class, and so on. These are the things which are going to play a vital role in terms of deciding whether the woman can actively take part in the politics or not. Even as there is reservation at the local bodies, my dear friends, we can see women contesting and coming into power, but we can see either the husband or a dominant caste wala who is going to enjoy the power. It's not the woman, my dear friends. Now let us discuss about the woman's role in local self-governments. Decentralization is the heart of democracies, my dear friends. As it is in very definition, democracy is for the people, by the people, of the people, as Abraham Lincoln has mentioned. Decentralization basically means establishment of local self-government. It is establishment of local self-government bodies and facilitating them to take decisions for the development of that particular area. In the country like India, with a variety and diversity of population, different cultures, different languages, it is necessary for us to decentralize the power so that the regional or the politicians, the local government is going to design the policies and programs for the welfare of the people, my dear friends. The local bodies in the real sense, in the terms, because people who are affected by public policies do participate in decision making process at the local level, my dear friends. India has a long history of self-government in some or the other form. The local administration of Cholas was a great historical significance. And the modern India during the British period, the Mayo Accord and Ripon Accord had laid the foundations for local self-government in India. However, the Article 40 of the Indian Constitution, 40, Article 40 of the Directive Principles of the State Policy embedded the Indian Constitution to make it mandatory for the government to develop the local bodies, my dear friends. The community development programs initiated in the year 1952 was not picked up on movement for the past 50 years. The Balwant Rai Mehta Committee, appointed in the year 1957, has stressed the importance of decentralization and suggested a three-tier level of Panchayat Raj system. The Ashok Mehta Committee in the year 1977 has suggested a two-tier Panchayat system. However, in India, we have been using this three-tier system of Panchayat Raj. It has been confessed that Panchayat system during the last 40 years have not resulted in realizing the Gandhian dream of Gram Swaraj. Gandhiji has said that if the nation has to prosper, then the villages have to be prospered because majority of the Indian population reside in the rural areas. As per 2011 census, 57% of the Indian population even now depend on agriculture, plus 10% indirectly depend on agriculture. That means almost 2 by 3rd of the Indian population is directly or indirectly linked with the rural India. And without development of rural India, my dear friends, we cannot ensure that the nation will prosper. So, they said that these local bodies have to be strengthened. Local politics is very often filled with, often full of group and factional rivalries and caste and communal issues. So if we see in the rural areas, even now people are traditional, they are conservative, and just because of this, we also find a lot of casteism and so on. This also lead to caste-based conflicts, religious conflicts, or rivalryism, my dear friends. Even though if we see in terms of accessibility, local bodies are closer to women and local issues are more comprehensible. The socio-political system as it exists rarely allow them to contest and get elected, my dear friends. Now let us see the role of women in local self-bodies in the recent trends. If we see from the year 19, by the year 1975, there have been in all, the government has taken all the efforts, not only the government, even the non-governmental organizations have put on more efforts to bring the women into the mainstream public life. They try to realize that one of the primary reasons for the slow pace of development is neglecting 50% of the Indian population. It is nothing but the women population, my dear friends. Besides improving their educational conditions, cultural and economical status, it is of great urgency that their participation in public decision-making institutions should be increased. In the year 1988, the National Commission for Women has suggested for 30% of reservation for women in all political institutions, my dear friends, across the country, from panchayat to that of the parliament. In this background, that the historic context, the 73rd Amendment of the Indian Constitution, has, which was passed in the year 1993, has provided provision for compulsory to be implemented in all the states. The main aspects of this act was to provide 1 by 3rd of reservation of women in this three-tiered system of Panchayat Raj. This has led to be around 1 lakh of women to be elected in the local bodies across the country, my dear friends. Around 75,000 would be functioning as sarpanch, 1700 as Samiti presidents, and around 150 as Jilla Parishad chairmen also. Even in the municipal bodies, women should fill um, in the office by 1 by 3rd ratio. This is considered as a silent revolution leading to major structural changes in the Indian political scenario. And right now, my dear friends, the government did not stop there itself. Recently, in the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, they have passed the bill to provide 1 by 3rd of reservation to the women at the parliament level. And maybe next one day, maybe within next half a decade, we can see that the bill will be implemented effectively across the political arena from the panchayat system to that of the parliament system. So much has to be done. In order to encourage women participation in politics, my dear friends, we have to take care of multiple things. The first one is we need to encourage girl child education, because as the girl is educated, she will be able to decide what is right and what is wrong. They will play an active role in the political arena. But if we see in the rural areas, because of the customs, because of traditions, and so on, the girls are being married at the early age. Once they attain the 18 years of age or below that age, also in some communities, they are going for child marriages. So there must be a mechanism where we can educate not only the child but first their parents, so that the parents will allow the girl child to go for higher studies. First one. Second one, the government already brought a law saying that there must be free and compulsory education for all the children up to the age for 14 years. 14 years of free and compulsory education. It is there. It is being implemented, but the dropout rate of women is also higher. The dropout rate of women is higher because of multiple reasons. One is lack of resources or facilities. That means the schools are not very, very close to the house. That may be one of the reasons that the parents are not sending the children for far off places. The parents are not comfortable. They are thinking that what about the security of girls and so on. For that reason. Second one, in some areas, because there are studies saying that in the schools or in the school colleges, there are no toilets. Lack of facility of toilet facility is also one of the reason for dropout, the increase in dropout, and so on, early marriages, and so on. So the policies are there, but we have to change the mindset of the people so that they encourage the girl child to go for education. And we also have to encourage the people to take part in all the areas. It's not only politics, to take active part in all the areas like getting jobs or taking decisions in the family and so on. It can all happen only when the girl is properly educated. Our duty is to empower them psychologically, physically, financially, in all the domains, so that she will be able to take decisions on her own for herself and for the family members, my dear friends. This is about the participation of women in the politics or the status of women in the society, both from the ancient to that of the modern societies. Now let us discuss about women in political process, unit number 6. In USA and UK, women conducted serious political struggles and acquired the right to franchise. Many other countries followed the same in the post Second World War period. Switzerland granted franchise to women only in the year 1971. With regard to India, my dear friends, there are two factors which acted as a catalyst in the achievement of political equality for women. The first one is women's participation in the freedom struggle, and the other one is the leadership of Gandhiji, who encouraged the women to take active role in the freedom struggle, my dear friends. So because of this, we can see that there is a slight improvement in the status of women. So the position that Indian women occupied today is the result of the endeavors of the social reformers, educationalists, political leaders, policies, and so on, which was designed during the 19th and the 20th centuries. The era of dynamic changes has affected positively in the status of women. The political subjection for 2 centuries resulted in the people's determination to throw off all the schedules of the bondage. India gained her political freedom and emerged as an independent, sovereign, democratic, and a republic nation. The principles of equality was made an integral part of the objective of free India. Let us discuss about the Indian woman in the political process during pre-independence period. With the advent of British, my dear friends, a new phase has started in the Indian society. The colonial domination has paralyzed the country in all the aspects, in all the respects. The alien culture has been which was introduced by the Britishers have deprived the nation of its natural mode of self-expression. It damaged the country both emotionally as well as spiritually. The economical changes initiated by the Britishers aimed at the exploitation of the Indian resources or the resources which are there in the Indian society, both natural resources as well as the physical resources or the human resources, my dear friends. They try to exploit the people. The Britishers have introduced English medium schools. They have introduced English medium schools so that they also said that the educational institutions are open for all sections of people. Before that, the educational institutions may be open for few sections of people, but here they said that this education is available for each and every section of people. But in reality, it has increased the gap between the elite and the non-elite people, my dear friends. It has increased the gap between the elite and the commoners. The social reform movements uh, try to concentrate on the social issues like child marriages, infant marriages, bride's price, and so on. We also have social evils which has deprived the women of their moral leadership and economical partnership. They instead encourage women's education and widow remarriages. Before the reform movements have taken place, my dear friends, the women were made socially weak, economically dependent on the parents or on the husband, and politically powerless, my dear friends. They were troubled by caste and economical differences. So, if we want to have progress, there must be in the process, women have been dehumanized and their natural faculties have been neglected, which led to the decline of talents and skills of women, my dear friends. Even they have the talents, they were not in a position to exhibit it because the society did not encourage it, my dear friends. Gandhiji, during the national movement, has tried to uplift the status of women by making them part of the freedom struggle. He wanted to bring the changes in the Indian society through Sarvodaya movement. Gandhiji firmly believed that the duty following from the tradition of Dharma alone will succeed to an end. Dharma is nothing but rightness, my dear friends. They said that if any tradition is there which is going to stick on to the Dharma, nothing but the rightness will succeed till the end. In his own words, a new edifice with a new pulsation and refresh time has replaced the older traditions. Women with the middle class background had the resilience to adjust to the new environment because they are very, very close to the upper class. The middle class people had the opportunity to adjust with the new environment. Women's organization has gained its momentum. The participation of women in both the social as well as political movements have increased a lot, though it is smaller, my dear friends. Some adventurous and committed women even took part in the revolutionary movements as couriers, distributors of evolutionary literature, risking police for their life also. Sometimes these people were caught and they were also imprisoned. In spite of this, it did not shatter the morale of the women and from taking part in the revolutionary movements, my dear friends. Woman is the companion of man, gifted with equal mental capacities. Gandhiji has commented that woman is the companion of man with the gifted of equal mental capacities. She has the same right of freedom and liberty as male. So he said that by if the customs are going to stop this and make the people ignorant or make the people from enjoying the rights, then um, obviously it is a problem or it is worthless, my dear friends. He said that to become a leader in Satyagraha, women required not the scholarship but the strong herd or the herd to take part. Women who spent their lives for ages behind Parda came out to fight the superstitious in the Orthodox society because the Gandhiji has called for the people to come revolt against the traditional system which is lagging them or which is stopping them from enjoying their rights of freedom and right of participation in any of the arena. Women of different communities have taken part in freedom struggle as campaigners, protesters, demonstrators, and constructive social workers and so on against the social evils and oppression. Some educated women came together to spread literacy and self-realization. So we can see that there are plenty of changes coming place in the Indian society just because of people's participation. In the year 1931, in Karachi session of the Indian National Congress, the historic decision was taken committing itself to the political equality of women, which was later enshrined in the Indian Constitution. The Montague Reform of 1919 did not live up to the expectation of Indian political leaders. There was great uprisings such as Jallianwala Bagh Massacre, non-cooperation movement, and so on. The British were unwilling to grant franchise to women, which was led by Sarojini Naidu. The women leaders presented their demands before the Parliament Committee in London. The provisional legislature that came in the wake of 1919 Act granted franchise to women and women participated in elections. But the franchise was limited only to the taxpayers, not to all sections of women, my dear friends. But later on, it has been extended to all the educated women. Has started earlier women in large numbers participation in Satyagraha, Salt Satyagraha, Gandhiji could succeed. Who led the Salt raid was a woman by name Darshana in the south. Srimati Rukmini, who was arrested, who led the Salt Satyagraha. Elderly women leaders inspired the younger women to take active part in these movements, my dear friends. The women are favorably responding in few ways. The first one is women are willing to take part in the political process. Political attitude played a significant role in determining political behavior based on their awareness, commitment, and involvement of women in politics. And the third one was when we consider the role of women, my dear friends, in the political process, it can be stated that the political rights are only an instrument to achieve the other goals. If there is not going to be political participation, if they're not going to have political roles, then they cannot put their grievances in front of the people. So if their grievances are not heard, then the government may not